Okay, good morning, everyone. Hope you're well and looking forward to today's webinar. We've just hit the magic number of 100 people in the room, so I think we'll get going. We're expecting a few more, but I'm sure they'll join us as we get underway now. If you've just joined us, please feel free to say hello in the chat, post your questions about the campaign there. We'll pick them up as we go. Please do be aware that today's webinar is being recorded for the NCVO YouTube channel, and that captions are enabled for accessibility, and slides will be made available afterwards. The purpose of today is simply to provide practical information on the Big Help Out campaign, what it is, how you can get involved, how we can take advantage of this opportunity for us to support our volunteer recruitment objectives. The audience today is literally any volunteer involving organisation across the UK that is interested in the campaign and how it can use it in its own volunteer recruitment work. My name's Gethin Williams. I'm an associate consultant with NCVO, and today is part of a wider Big Help Out support package that's being delivered through NCVO for the voluntary and community sector. It's the second of two open webinars that we've had, and if you managed to join the first one as well, thank you. There'll be some similar content from that session today, but also some key campaign updates. We're about a month further down the line than the last session, so there will be new material for you, and we have a slightly different roster of guests joining us. Thank you very, very much for being here. Even though the Big Help Out weekend is taking place in June, now is the best time to be getting involved. So your participation today is really timely. And that's because the public launch is coming. It's just a couple of weeks away now. In mid-April, the public will have its first opportunity to access the Big Help Out offer. And so now is actually the best time to be getting your digital accounts ready and uploading your existing volunteer roles. And we'll tell you a lot about how best to do that as we get through today. Okay, we're up to a really good number of people in the room now. So thank you again for being here, and we'll get on with today's webinar. So here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. Part one is designed as a briefing on the Big Help Out. We'll introduce the campaign and all of the key elements behind it, hopefully give you some really, really good reasons to get involved. We'll also take a look at this question of underrepresented communities in volunteering, which is a key focus of the campaign this year. What is the campaign doing to target these kinds of communities, and how can we consider this question ourselves as volunteer involving organisations and form our own approach? We're going to be joined along the way for some extra content from Jez Hughes, who convenes the Shaping the Future with Volunteering group, and also Sarah Tranter from the Vision for Volunteering team based here at NCVO. Delighted that Jez and Sarah can join us this morning. Thanks very much for being here, both of you. We'll have a very quick break in the middle, and then we'll go into part two, which is more of a conversational piece, really. We'll talk about some of the key elements of the campaign, starting with Volunteers Week and how the campaign aligns with that. Nicola Gower, who's a consultant like myself from NCVO, who is leading on the Volunteers Week planning this year, will join us for that. I'll say a few things about the digital platform itself and how you can use that best. And then we'll also be joined by Pete Gaffney, who's the campaign manager at Together, to tell us a little bit about what's going on with the media campaign this year, and hopefully some really key updates on the public launch as well, that's taking place in mid-April. Okay, so let's move straight on into this first section, introducing the Big Help Out. If you've just joined us and you didn't hear my earlier announcements, then yes, slides will be available after the session. We will email them all to you, along with a series of key links as well. We'll probably be posting some of those in the chat as we go, so keep an eye on the chat too. Let's start with a quick overview of the campaign itself. What is it, where does it come from, and what is it planning to achieve? Well, the context for this, of course, will be familiar to many of us here. We know that millions of people volunteered during the pandemic, but we've seen a significant decline in volunteer numbers since, and the Big Help Out is a real attempt to try and help us respond to that challenge. So its objectives are simply to raise awareness of volunteering throughout the UK and to provide lots of great opportunities for people to get involved, to help out, to experience volunteering, perhaps for the first time, and to make a difference in their communities. And as we know, this is a genuine call to action at a specific point in the calendar. Big Help Out weekend takes place in June at the end of Volunteers Week, on that weekend from Friday the 7th to Sunday the 9th. You've probably seen that there are a number of different groups behind the campaign this year, and we'll be explaining a little bit more about these as we go. And as I said, we've got some guests from some of them coming up too. Firstly, let's have a quick chat about the Shaping the Future with Volunteering group. If you haven't come across them before, that's a coalition of over 30 major national volunteer involving charities from across the UK. The Shaping the Future group really conceived the idea of the Big Help Out and act as something of a steering group for it. And Jez Hughes, who convenes that group, will tell us a little bit more about them and what they're planning for this year's campaign shortly. On the right-hand side here, you can see the Together Coalition. As you may know, the Together Coalition are a cross-sector coalition dedicated to building bridges between communities. They run a number of different campaigns throughout the year. The Big Help Out is one of those. And it's really the staff team at Together that coordinate a lot of the elements around the campaign itself, particularly the media side of it. And that's why Pete from Together is joining us in part 2. And hopefully you need very little introduction to NCVO, National Council for Voluntary Organisations. We are the largest membership body for charities in England. As I hope you know, championing volunteering is a really key part of what NCVO does. So hosting this support package for the voluntary sector on how to get involved in the Big Help Out is really a natural part of our role. So a lot of people ask, how does the Big Help Out campaign work? How does it help us to create this new audience for volunteers? Well, there are 3 elements to it really that is good to bear in mind. And it's really how these 3 elements work together successfully that makes for the campaign's ultimate success. So this first element is a high-profile media campaign taking place in broadcast and print and social media, which is really designed to raise awareness of volunteering amongst the public and inspire them to help out, to come and do something on this national call to action weekend, Big Help Out weekend, 7th to the 9th of June, but also throughout the summer as well. The second element is a public-facing digital platform, a one-stop shop that's based through an app and also in a web browser that gives the public a really clear, simple user journey to find those opportunities and to sign up for something. So you can see how this works together really nicely with the media campaign. Inspired to volunteer, to come out and help. How do I do it? This is where I use the public-facing digital platform. And then the third element is really with us. It's with the volunteer involving sector. It's our responsibility to provide a great range of events, actions, and ongoing roles that, yes, take place on Big Help Out weekend itself, but also at any point, especially throughout the summer. You can advertise events, actions, and ongoing roles at any point up until the end of August, even though the Big Help Out weekend itself in June will be the key public focus, and that's probably when the public will be paying most attention. So we have 3 elements here that work together to make this campaign successful. The first one, the media campaign, is designed to build an audience. The second one, the digital platform, is designed to help the public really easily find opportunities and sign up for something there and then. And the third element, the volunteer involving organisational element, is about us providing a great choice of activities to take part in and then a great experience for them once they come. So that's the opportunity to create a new audience for us in volunteering. Don't think of it as a silver bullet with thousands of new volunteers turning up at your door on Big Help Out weekend. They may not be quite at that point at that time, but it does help us create a brilliant new audience for volunteering that we can then try and convert into something a bit more meaningful. It creates the audience for us. That's how we should think about this campaign. So what's the campaign seeking to achieve this year? Well, these are its 3 main objectives. The first is about scale. The Big Help Out started last year, as I'm sure you know, and it did empower millions of people to volunteer and come out. And this year, we are looking to build a legacy from that. It is about trying to reach the public en masse. And if you haven't followed what happened last year, there are a few slides coming up which will give you an overview of where the successes were. The second major element is around sustainability. Even though the Big Help Out weekend is just one weekend, this is a campaign designed to empower and enable organisations to try and convert one-off volunteering into something more sustained and meaningful in terms of our engagement with them. And a lot of the elements of the campaign are set up to help us do that. And then the third element, which we will talk about in a bit more depth today, is about reaching underrepresented communities in volunteering, trying to increase the diversity amongst people that can take part in volunteering for communities that need a bit of extra help to volunteer. And we're going to say quite a lot about that in the end of this first half. This is where we are on the campaign's timeline. Slightly out of date now. We should have that green tick over April, but this is the key elements essentially. So you may have followed some of this already. We launched the Big Help Out officially in January. Throughout February and March, we've been building lots of elements of the digital platform and kind of getting ready for the media campaign. That will start in earnest now from mid-April, as we were saying, and there's more information coming up about that quite shortly. It's been combined with a few mini launches for different sectors and thematic organizations. Pete will tell us a little bit more about how those have been going kind of later on. But as I said at the top, right now, we're in this really, really key period for volunteer involving organizations where the platform is open to us. We can get our accounts ready and we can start uploading our volunteering roles right now. And it's a really, really good time to be doing that because of this public launch from mid-April. We'll be able to catch the first wave of public attention and put your volunteer roles in front of that audience. The media campaign itself will build more in earnest from that point onwards, throughout April, right the way into May, and then really peaking in early June through Volunteers Week and to the Big Help Out weekend itself, as we said, on the 7th to the 9th of June. But like we said, the campaign platform is also open until the end of August. So if you've got events taking place throughout the summer, feel free to add those to the Big Help Out platform now. The public will still see them in their search results if they match those areas of interest that the public have entered into their preferences and their availability. So there are many great reasons to get involved in the Big Help Out this year. Here are the three that we really particularly wanted to highlight. The first, and probably the main reason many of you are here today, is that it helps us reach a potential new audience of volunteers in what is otherwise a very tough recruitment and retention climate. It creates that opportunity for us. And we're sure that's probably your main reason for being here, but there are some other good ones too. The second one relates to this objective around targeting underrepresented communities in volunteering. Many of us are invested in this notion of trying to increase diversity in volunteering and within our cohorts of volunteers particularly. And if you've got that objective in your own organisation, then now is a brilliant time to try and put that into action because you'll be doing it with the backing of a national campaign and with many peer organisations around you trying to do something similar. Now is a great time to be making progress against this target for us. And then thirdly, we also think there's real value in combining the Big Help Out with Volunteers Week this year. Not only is it a bit more of an efficient use of our time, last year, as you may remember, Volunteers Week and Big Help Out happened about a month apart from each other. And we know it can be quite difficult to plan and execute and to find the resources for two campaigns at different times like that. We don't have that challenge this year. They're taking place at the same time. So hopefully there are real efficiency gains for us there. But more important than that, aligning with Volunteers Week gives us the opportunity to create this bridge between the celebratory and the recognition activity that we take forward through Volunteers Week and our recruitment objectives as well. We can bring those together in a really efficient and added value way. And we'll say a little bit more about that with Nicola in part 2. So hopefully that's convinced you that there are some really good opportunities to get involved. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look at who we're targeting and what we think the chances of success are. Firstly, what kind of volunteers might be warm to the Big Help Out or a campaign like the Big Help Out? How does it help us reach and inspire perhaps those kinds of volunteers that might not turn up all of the time? Well, here's a graph that many of you will be familiar with. It comes from the Community Life Survey, which is our main national data set on volunteering in the UK. And as you can see here, our data goes back about 10 years or so. So we're able to look at levels of volunteering from the post-London 2012 period, which was a bit of a high point for us in recent times, and also in more challenging recent times, the COVID era, where we've seen lots of rates of volunteering drop off a little bit as well. Now, this graph is only really here to remind us that there are 4 kinds of ways that we measure volunteers, and this tells us about 4 different types of volunteers that might be out there and warm to us. We're probably most interested in the bottom line here, the dark blue one. That's regular, formal volunteers. These are the people that are probably most core to our organizations, that they're turning up regularly and they're working within the context that we set them for. They're formal and regular in that sense. But of course, there are also other types of volunteers out there. And if we look at where these lines are on the graph, we can see that there are more of these types as well. There are informal volunteers who don't do things through under the organization of a group or a cause or a charity. They do them more autonomously. And there are irregular volunteers, people that are interested in volunteering, but might not do it on a regular or a monthly basis in terms of the way we measure it. And it's really these kinds of volunteers that the Big Help Out is targeting. They might be open to helping out in their community. They might be warm to doing something. They may not be doing it all of the time. This is the audience that we're trying to reach. And our objective is to give them a really great first experience of doing something with us so that we can hopefully inspire them to do more, so that we can bring them into that blue line that we see here at the bottom. That's how to think about this campaign. How do we know it works? Let's take a little bit of a look at the impact from last year. This is what happened in 2023. So if the campaign's job is to build a new audience for volunteering, then I think we can safely say that we achieved that last year. Over 7.2 million people came out and did something last year, a huge proportion of which was in active volunteering roles and taster sessions itself. So the audience comes, and we can see here also that we had great cut through with the public as well. 1 in 3 Brits had heard about the Big Help Out. It takes an enormous amount of public attention to get to that level. So that's really, really successful. The second part is about providing great opportunities to take is about providing great choice and opportunity to help out and take part in something. And we can see here that many volunteer-involved organisations stepped up to that challenge. About 35,000 posted opportunities on the Big Help Out platform last year, giving that choice, making sure it was there for when the public turned up. And individuals told us that many of them were more likely to come back again. It really represented a good experience for the public. 70% said they were likely to take part in volunteering as a result of it. So this is data that's taken through national polling done in the immediate aftermath of Big Help Out weekend last year, just in May after the King's coronation. I'm sure we'll remember that. But you don't have to just take the campaign's word for it. We also did some polling with volunteer involving organisations and volunteers themselves a little bit further down the line. And here's what they told us. So 6 months on, did this result in new volunteers coming through? Well, 17% of organisations said, yes, it did actually. We have seen new regular volunteers coming to us as a result of the Big Help Out campaign. And within that cohort, many of them, nearly half of them, said the diversity of the volunteers coming through was pretty good compared to what they would normally expect. They saw different types of volunteers than ones that might normally come to their, their doors. So that's what volunteer involving organisations told us when we polled them 6 months further down the line. And if we look at what volunteers said, the results are actually even more positive again. So here are a few quick stats to share. 80% of those who signed up to the Big Help Out last year with an organisation or a cause had no prior relationship with that organisation or cause. So it did reach a new audience for volunteers. 40% of them had done no other volunteering in the past year. So that's quite a lot of people on those other lines on the graph that we just saw, not on the blue lines, but on the orange and the grey and the yellow. About 71% of everybody that signed up to something went on to take part as planned, which is a pretty healthy conversion rate in volunteering. And even more than volunteer involving organisations told us, 34% of those that took part told us that they did actually go on to volunteer again with the same organisation. So there's clearly a range of views here between organisations' perceptions and volunteers' perceptions, but somewhere between 20 and 30%, we think, of volunteers were coming back if we take an average across those two measures. Even if they didn't go back and volunteer again or with the same organization, over half of them said, yes, we went on and did something else in volunteering over that year. And a really high proportion said that they would take part again next year, which is really, really encouraging. There's a few learning points for us here for volunteer involving organizations, but you can review these at your leisure when the slides are circulated afterwards. So hopefully that's convinced you that there are really, really great opportunities to get involved. So next, we're going to hear a little bit about what that looks like from some of the national organisations taking part. So at this point, I'm going to invite Jez Hughes from the Shaping the Future with Volunteering group to come and tell us a little bit about what's going on with that group this year. Jez, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, yes, Catherine, thanks very much for the time this morning. I'm Jez Hughes. As you say, I'm the convener of Shaping the Future with Volunteering. This is a group of 30 or so of the largest national volunteer involving organisations. You can see the logos of those organisations, or most of them, on that slide. And the reason we came together in 2021 was really to reflect on the fact that a lot of traditional volunteering had dropped away, both pre and during and post COVID. A lot of those volunteers who had worked for many years as volunteers had dropped away. But on the other side, as Gethin has said, we saw millions, 3.8 million of the people who volunteered in response to COVID said they'd like to volunteer again, but they didn't know how to get there. They didn't know how to do it. So we said as a group, and this is led by the chief execs of these charities, very personally involved, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to change the mold and change the way in which volunteering was seen. So the biggest initiative we've done is the Big Help Out, which we started last year around the coronation, and now, as we're all here today, talking about doing again on June the 7th to 9th this year. And what we want to do is demonstrate how we can reach to more diverse, more mixed communities, people who haven't volunteered before. We've just done a big project with Bradford Community Action, where we've done a big survey that's looked at why do people not volunteer? Why do people from different communities, why do many young people not get involved in volunteering? And we need to look at how do we learn from that and how do we improve the way we reach out to people across many different communities. So across the Shaping the Future with Volunteering charities, we're going to be directly involved from all our individual charities in promoting volunteering for those individual charities, putting up opportunities on the app and on the platform to let people sign up. But going beyond that, we want to support all of you and the wider sector in increasing the reach and effectiveness of volunteering opportunities. And one way we're doing that is we've worked with the Know Your Neighbourhood Fund from DCMS, with Business in the Community, with the Spirit of 2012 and others, to identify 6 locations around the country where we're going to focus our activity this year to demonstrate a different way of promoting volunteering and really kickstart more involvement. Now, it's hard picking which of those 6 locations to go for, but the ones we've ended up with are Bradford, Blackpool, Teesdale, Great Yarmouth, Wisbech and Medway. And in each of those areas, we're going to be giving more intensive support to the local voluntary sector, to voluntary organisations, to demonstrate how we can make that difference. And then we'll write that up and use that as a model for the way in which we can engage more communities and more sections of the community in volunteering in future years. So I think that gives you a snapshot, Catherine, and everybody, of what we're up to. And we're really keen to engage with you, not just in those 6 areas, but across the board to give support to your volunteering initiatives in the Big Help Out this year.
Thanks, Jez. That's amazing. Great to hear what you're up to and what the Shaping the Future group are planning. We'll say a little bit more about some of those underrepresented communities in the next part, but you've given us a brilliant reminder there of kind of where the campaign came from and what it's trying to achieve. We know, don't we, that when volunteers are asked, why don't you volunteer? They say things like, well, I didn't know I was needed. Nobody asked me to. I didn't know when I was needed. You can see how the media campaign is a direct response to that kind of challenge. Volunteers also say things like, I didn't know where to go, where to search for opportunities. I didn't want to navigate multiple websites and that sort of thing. Again, the Big Help Out's one-stop shop digital platform is a response to that kind of challenge. So we are trying to get over some of these perennial challenges that we experience in volunteering, and that's where the Big Help Out comes in. Okay, Excuse me. So that's the end of our first part, the introduction to the Big Help Out itself. The key messages from this part are that you can have a bit of this conversation yourself internally if you want to. We're putting together a VCSE resource pack now, which contains versions of these slides that you can use for an internal conversation. Hopefully you really heard that loud, clear message about getting your account ready now. We've got a couple of weeks before the public launch. Now is a brilliant time to be uploading your ongoing roles. If you're ready to think about maybe any events or actions that you might be hosting during Volunteers Week or Big Help Out weekend itself, of course you can upload those too, but you've still got time to think about those as well. The platform opens to the public from mid-April, as we said. Okay. Let's take a look at this second question now around engaging underrepresented communities. And Sarah from the Vision for Volunteering team is going to join us a little bit later on to talk about how the vision fits into this objective as well. But before we get there, let's have a quick look at how the campaign is addressing this question. Jez touched on it just then when he talked about the Know Your Neighbourhood Fund. So the Big Help Out campaign this year is focusing on two aspects of diversity in volunteering. It's trying to reach more younger volunteers, and some younger volunteers do volunteer at reasonably good levels compared to other age groups, but we know that the 25 to 34s group is a particular challenge if we look at the CLS data. However, groups of young people in general, 18 to 34s, do appear more likely to volunteer through something like the Big Help Out. We've got some data to share with you later, which demonstrates that for us. So younger volunteers is one area of focus. And the other is areas of multiple deprivation. Unfortunately, the data shows us that those in more deprived areas volunteer a lot less. The data feels fairly clear on that. And that's why we're focusing on areas of lower economic and social capital this year. Some of those are connected to recipients of grant funding through the central government's Know Your Neighbourhood funding. And that relates to the 6 areas that Jez talks about. So, as volunteer involving organisations, we can do a couple of things here. We can certainly follow the campaign's lead and think about younger volunteers or perhaps reaching more deprived areas to help them get involved in volunteering. Or we can use national data and national research to help us plan our own approaches. Many of us will already have targets about particular communities that we're trying to reach. So both those options are fine. And the next few slides are designed to help us think about how we can do that best. Firstly, I wanted to show you a little bit about what the national data tells us about who is underrepresented in volunteering. There's actually quite a mixed picture if we look at a lot of the demographics and protected characteristics, but there is one area of data that does appear to be consistent, and this is where volunteering relates to areas of wealth and affluence or more deprived areas. Volunteering appears to track economic capital in that regard. It's more likely to take place in more affluent areas, less likely to take place in more deprived areas. And this probably isn't surprising to many of us, and this assumption is backed up by wider research as well. If we look at the distribution of charities across the UK, and this was also backed up when we looked at where mutual aid groups were formed during COVID, that tends to follow a similar pattern. We tend to find more organisations and areas of voluntary support per capita in more affluent areas. So the ability to volunteer may well be linked with economic and perhaps also social capital. By social capital, we might think about infrastructure in volunteering, volunteer centres, councils for voluntary service, anchor organisations and similar. If you need convincing further, here's the data. It's fairly stark, I'm afraid. 5 levels of deprivation showing levels of volunteering per level here. 1 is the most deprived and 5 is the least deprived. So you can see there's a clear trend from low to high in terms of levels of volunteering in areas of affluence. And that goes back at least 5 years in the way that this particular set of data was measured. So it's a clear trend. A quick word on younger volunteers. I said that they were more likely to engage in the Big Help Out. This is what they told us in 2023. Those younger groups, we know, 18 to 34 combined, ended up being a significant part of those that came out and took part. So we've got really good reason to think that they will do so again. And indeed, they told us that they would do. The graph on the right-hand side says, talks about which age ranges are more likely to take part next year. What did they tell us as well? So the Big Help Out does, we feel, represent this really great opportunity to engage younger volunteers. And we know that many organizations are seeking to do just that. So the question, I suppose, now is how can we do that best? What can kind of help us do it? Well, there are two main sources of support that we're suggesting that you take a look at. This will be in the VCSE resource pack as well, but they may be familiar to you already. The first is relates to NCVO's Time Well Spent series of research reports. This is a national survey into the volunteer experience, and you may know that the latest iteration of that research focuses on what we're calling global majority volunteers, non-white, non-British volunteers. What's their experience of volunteering? What motivates them? What drives them? Loads of insights in there that can help us plan our approach. And we're also suggesting that you take a look at the vision for volunteering here, which can be a really handy resource for us in considering these kind of questions, and particularly its new toolkit. And at this point, I'd love to bring in Sarah from the vision team that's based at NCVO to tell us a little bit more about that. Sarah, welcome to the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name's Sarah Tranter. My pronouns are she, they. I'm the Learning and Storytelling Officer with the Vision for Volunteering team.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're really delighted to have you here. I'm sure many of us know quite a lot, or hopefully we know quite a lot about the vision for volunteering already. We know it's a 10-year vision encapsulated in 5 themes that's designed to help us consider our practice. And we know that trying to engage new audiences in volunteering or reach more diverse communities is a really, really key part of that. But tell us a little bit to start with about this new toolkit that you've developed, which helps organizations explore these themes, as I understand. What does that look like, and how's it been going?
Yeah, so we've released Toolkit, which is a tool that you can use to start having conversations with your organizations, your communities, the people around you about the future of volunteering. So what the Vision for Volunteering is a long-term like national framework for people to use to think about where we are now, where we want to go in the future. But we know that this is going to look different for everybody. There are loads of different organizations in loads of different parts of the country that are facing their own challenges, their own strengths, their own areas of sort of things that they want to develop. So what the toolkit does is it takes this national framework of the Vision for Volunteering and says, okay, let's think about this in our local context. What does it look like for us? How do these themes intersect with the issues that we're seeing? How do they intersect with the actions that we want to take within our local community? And it helps to kind of focus on real solid actions that you can take towards that future that you want to see.
Wonderful, wonderful. That sounds really useful. I know loads of organizations have been fascinated by the vision since it started and have explored different ways in which they can kind of use it. But the toolkit sounds like a brilliant opportunity to go and have that internal conversation, figure out which of these themes are really, really important to you and how you can act on them. So it's great that that resource is there now. The link is on the screen for anyone to see, but it's easily findable from the Vision website. I can testify to that. I managed to find it myself this morning.
I've just put the link in the chat as well for anybody
Mm.
who can't find it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. I suppose we could make an argument that all of these themes probably relate to this objective that we have about trying to open up volunteering for more people and for different types of communities. But probably the obvious one is around equity and inclusion. I know the Vision team has been really active over the last year. You've been on the road, you've done loads of roadshows and webinars and those sorts of things. Can you share a little bit about how people are responding to that theme in particular? What kind of areas come up for people and how are they addressing it?
Yeah, so equity inclusion is, I think, one of those themes that's really unifying. It's something that everybody knows is really important, and we know that loads and loads of people throughout the country are already doing, really, really fabulous things to bring more people in, to allow more people to kind of feel welcome within the volunteering space. We know that there continue to be really huge barriers around equity and inclusion. We know that there are gaps in kind of training and confidence for people stepping into this space, and that issues like the kind of cost of living crisis continue to make it really difficult. It's really interesting that you've been kind of highlighting that those graphs around deprivation. It's really, really kind of stark picture of how cost of living and deprivation can impact on who is able to, or who feels able to volunteer.
Mm.
So yeah, we know that there's lots of stuff that people are doing. There are real kind of opportunities around looking at how to deliver volunteering in a really flexible way. We know that there's a lot of people who don't chime with the kind of traditional way of delivering volunteering, and they want something that is more responsive to their needs, and that's a way of getting new people into the volunteering space. We know that there are really simple actions that you can take around things like expenses, paying expenses in a kind of timely and really consistent way can be a really kind of easy barrier to break down for getting more people involved in volunteering. And then the other one that I really want to mention is just around empowering volunteers and really bringing out that volunteer voice, listening to volunteers, hearing what they have to say, involving them in that decision making. And I feel like the more volunteers feel empowered and included and listened to within those volunteering opportunities, the more likely they are to stick around and say that they've had a positive experience.
That's a really, really, really lovely summary, I think, of what the vision is all about for me. It always struck me as something that's really trying hard to take to put the volunteer at the center of the process, to take a really strength-based approach. I don't feel that that's a compromise for us at all, because I feel like that's the best way to engage the volunteer and make them more likely that they will really get involved in your cause, as well as addressing what they need from it as well. So thank you for sharing that. In addition to the toolkit, I know that there's a couple of other things that people can access through the Vision site at the moment. You've been doing a lot of work around storytelling and trying to use the power of storytelling. Can you say a few things about that for us? How's that been going?
Yeah, so we are really keen to kind of shine a spotlight on and amplify volunteer voices so they can kind of tell their stories in their own words. That's not only helpful for figuring out what it is that they want and need, but it's also about empowering them and making sure that their voice really kind of comes through in our decision making. So yeah, we've done a load of training. We've trained over 100 people in a technique called community reporting, which is a really simple kind of digital storytelling technique for kind of centering that volunteer voice. If you go onto our website, and I will put the link in the chat in a second, there are kind of self-led resources that you can use to train yourself in community reporting. And I'd really encourage you to have a look at that and think about how you can really bring storytelling into your organization and really kind of highlight that volunteer voice.
Amazing, amazing. So that's a great way to bring the volunteer voice through in your organization. So it's another practical resource in addition to the toolkit. And then another area I know that we often struggle with in the volunteer involving sector is demonstrating the impact of this stuff. And nobody wants to hit a target but miss the point. So I know that you've been thinking a lot about qualitative impact and how presumably that's quite linked to the storytelling element as well. Say a few things, if you could, about how we might consider impact of volunteering to look.
Yeah, so the storytelling stuff is really, really useful there. A way of kind of capturing those impacts that really you kind of can't measure them with just kind of cold hard numbers. It doesn't tell the full picture. But we have some other resources available as well on measuring your qualitative impact with a technique called ripple effect mapping, which is a really visual way of looking at what have the impacts been of the work that you've been doing, what have those impacts been on your volunteers, on your organization, on your community, and looking at how those kind of spread. Looking at the intended impacts, but also looking at the unintended impacts. So I'll put the link in the chat again, but please do go on and have a look. It's a really, really simple technique. Anyone can do it. Involve your volunteers in creating those maps as well. That will give you a really rich visualization of all of the sort of lives that you're touching through the work that you're doing.
Sarah, that's perfect. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sure we've given everyone on the webinar a really clear idea of how they can use the vision to help them figure out how we approach this question of how we might increase diversity in our own volunteering programs or kind of contribute to this national objective. Do check out Sarah's links in the chat, and her contact details are on one of the previous slides that you'll see as well. But in the meantime, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. In the final couple of minutes before we break for a quick comfort break, I wanted to share just a few of the highlights of the data and insights that we start to see in the Time Well Spent Global Majority report. If you haven't checked this out already, this is a very, very much an introductory guide to it, and I won't go through all of the slides now, but just to highlight that there's lots in here that can really help us plan our approach to whatever offer we put together around the Big Help Out, or how we might engage people when they arrive on the day for events or for any taster sessions that you might be planning. These insights can really help us do that well. So Global Majority Time Well Spent series has lots to tell us about how to engender enthusiasm when we're trying to engage volunteers. This slide here talks about how we can review elements of our strategy to help us figure that out in the most effective way. There's lots in there that talks about the motivations of global majority volunteers. We know that the culture within the organization is particularly kind of key to that, but there's lots of other insights as to the kind of backgrounds that global majority volunteers might have and how we might appeal to those. We know that we get kind of indications about what they might think of a volunteering offer, the way that they judge volunteering, where they might be more likely to volunteer, and what kind of demographics or protected characteristics they might have or they might bring with them. All of this can tell us something about how to approach, how to recruit, how to engage, and how to make that really meaningful. So do check these out. There's also highlights around engagement, how global majority volunteers relate to their experience of volunteering, what really matters to them. We know this is true for younger volunteers as well, but many of them in the global majority particularly want a quick and easy entry process. That's something the Big Help Out can definitely help with. And then moving towards the end of this section now, we know that there are certain factors that really influence their satisfaction in volunteering. There's a couple here, some of them particularly relate again to the culture of the organization and the tone that we put across when we're engaging them. So these are all really important cues, things that we can think about as we go. Hopefully they are engaged and they come through your Big Help Out channels, and then you get into the challenge of retention. How do we do that best with global majority volunteers? Perhaps a sense of duty or obligation, and playing to that as part of the way that the role is set up can really help us there. And then finally, how do we make it more inclusive? Do go and take a look at what Time Well Spent says about this. The general advice to all volunteers is always worth checking up on. It's something that I use in my own practice almost on a daily basis, but there are particular insights that relate to global majority volunteers here as well. Sharing a couple on the screen just to give you an idea of those. So we've come to the end of this first section. Hopefully the key takeaways are obvious to you, but we know that if we're looking to make volunteering a bit more inclusive, one thing we can do is we can try and target areas of lower economic or social capital with that, more likely to have particular barriers. Younger volunteers are, we feel, a really key warm audience for the Big Help Out campaign. If you've got aspirations to, younger the age range, I'm not sure that's quite the right way of saying it, Gethin, but that you know what I mean, then this is a great time to have a think about that. Lots of resources we can get through the Vision for Volunteering website itself, and also more that can help you have this kind of conversation internally if you want to bring other colleagues along with you. And then finally, Time Well Spent's Global Majority series can really help us give us insights for how to plan on that. Okay, so we're just going to move to a quick break now and take 10 minutes to get a cup of tea and have some comfort. Many of you in the chat have been asking about the digital platform, I can see. Don't go anywhere. There is lots coming up on how to use the digital platform for particular kinds of organizations as well. If you're a frontline organization, there is good guidance. If you're an infrastructure organization, there are certainly some options that can help you there. I'll be covering all of those in part 2. So please don't go anywhere. But otherwise, it's about 10:45 now. We will reconvene at 10:55. Thank you. For those of you that are back at your desks, welcome and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the first half and found some of that content really useful. We're just on a quick pause before we reconvene in just a couple of minutes. So do stand by. We will start again at about 10:55. And thank you again for being here. Okay, we've just hit 10:55, so welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a nice, quick comfort break, got a cup of tea. In this next section, we'll be doing a number of things. We're going to be having a look at the digital platform, which I know is an area of question for many of us. So we'll be looking at how to use that and how to get the most out of it. We'll also be joined a little bit later on by Pete Gaffney from the Together campaign, who works on the campaign side, and will tell us a little bit about how the public-facing campaign is shaping up and what's likely to be happening at the public launch in April, in just a couple of weeks' time. But to kick us off, we're going to have a bit of a think about Volunteers Week and how this relates to the Big Help Out campaign itself. And I'm delighted to be joined, I think, I can see her there, by Nicola Gower. Nicola, welcome to the webinar. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Would you like to say a quick hello and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, Gethin. Thanks for having me. And hello, everyone. It's great to see so many numbers on the call. I hope you've had a great session so far this morning. So, as Gethin said, I'm Nicola Gower. I'm a marketing consultant working with the UKVF, so all of the UK partners for the Volunteering Forum, to try and align some of the Volunteers Week communications and celebrations for the 40th anniversary, trying to make it slightly bigger and more in your face than it has been for the last few years, with all of your assistance, of course.
More in your face. I love that. Is that a formal campaign objective? I really hope it is. Yeah,
That's my new one.
Absolutely. I don't know how we measure that, but I'm sure we'll come up with a really brilliant impact framework for it. Okay. So we've got a few kind of obvious discussion points, I suppose, to help us get our head around how these two kind of campaigns are linked together. Let's just kind of go through them one by one for people, just to get us all on the same page. The first one, hopefully people have clocked by now the fact that we've had this slight kind of calendar change in where Volunteers Week sits. Can you talk us through some of the thinking behind that and spell it out exactly for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, hopefully you'll have all seen various communications that come out via email and social media, but Volunteers Week, as you know, always used to run from the 1st to the 7th of June. This has now moved to be from the first Monday in June. Sorry, the sunshine's just blasted out in Sheffield in my face. So yes, it will now be from the first Monday in June every year. this is based on feedback that we had from the sector, and obviously many people involved in Volunteers Week, that starting on a weekend, which often it would on the 1st of June, wasn't very productive. It wasn't easy for people to manage. So it was felt across the sector, across the UK, that actually starting on a Monday, on a working day, would be much more beneficial. More people could get involved. It allowed people to be more organised. So yes, as of this year, it will be from the first Monday, which this year is the 3rd of June, and then we'll finish on the Sunday. So it's still a 7-day campaign. It just starts on a Monday every year.
Well, that feels really clean, and hopefully a much more sensible way to build to what we hope will be a brilliant climax to Volunteers Week with some big help out specific activity. So
Yeah.
thank you for that, Nicola. I mean, so most excitingly and very hot off the press, Volunteers Week's had a bit of a facelift this year, isn't it? People can hopefully see the new brand here on the bottom right of the screen. You've been working quite hard on that. Tell us a little bit about some of the thinking behind it, or how partners felt they wanted to use a new brand to help us achieve our objectives.
Okay. Yeah, so last week we launched the new brand. The team up in Volunteer Scotland have been leading this project work, and I've come in the last couple of months to help them with that. We also went out to the sector, so numerous organisations across the whole UK were asked to feed back on a couple of variations that we had, to make sure that we had a new brand that was fresh, that it was inclusive, that everyone felt that they could use, that we could utilise in different ways as well. So if you have a look on the website, which has been completely rebranded, it's fresher, it's easier to use. It certainly hits more of our needs for being accessible, and the resources that are available are kind of clearer and crisper, and hopefully, because we have quite a large colour palette, we wanted to make sure we had a large colour palette, to make sure that more organisations could use alongside their own branding, but also, again, thinking inclusively allows us to engage more with different age groups. So we're trying to do a lot, obviously, with the youth sector, and trying to encourage more volunteers to start from a younger age, so it's in their blood. So yeah, we have a big colour palette to allow for a lot more flexibility.
Amazing. And we know most organisations will be thinking about using Volunteers Week to help recognise or celebrate their volunteers. That's traditionally a big part of what we do. 40th anniversary, new brand. What better time to sort of reinvent that for some degree?
Exactly.
We'll come to that in a moment. There's sort of two reasons that I think aligning Volunteers Week with Big Help Out has really helped us this year. The first we touched on a little bit in the first part, actually, which is about sort of efficiency and how much effort it takes to run what could be two separate campaigns. That's kind of what happened last year. So we're hoping to do that a bit better this year. But probably the more interesting one is kind of the added value that you get when you link Volunteers Week and Big Help Out, really. So can you give us a little flavour of how we can use the new brand in recognition and celebration activities? What kind of things have you picked up as you've been talking to partners, perhaps in the UK nations this year, about how they might be recognising and celebrating?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, as I mentioned, we do have the new toolkit. Just quickly on what you were saying about the efficiency of kind of the two being Volunteers Week and the Big Help Out being together this year. Last year, there was quite a bit of feedback that it was obviously a lot of work with the two campaigns being in separate months. And because this is all around celebrating and thanking and now recruiting volunteers, it all seamlessly works together. So we have the 5 days, the Monday to Friday, of celebrating and thanking. That celebration and thanking can carry on into the weekend. But we also now have the added value of being able to shout about how volunteering can make a huge impact on society, but is also really good for ourselves. And then give people that opportunity on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday during the Big Help Out to have a few taster sessions in their local area, and see how they could get involved. So yeah, it's so much better than last year, and hopefully everybody in the sector will find it much easier to manage as well, which is great. And then, yeah, with regards to kind of our celebrations, we have our resource pack on the website that's got loads of different resources. So you can decorate your events with all of our bunting and the new branding. You can print out the big logos. We've we've printed out Fomex boards for photo opportunities. The selfie frame this year has been done as a downloadable, so you can print that out and stick that onto a piece of card for kind of to make it a cheaper, more easily accessible, again for photo opportunities with your volunteers. There's also thank you cards, certificates, so lots of new ways to get the new brand out there, but to also really recognise your volunteers. We're in discussions at the moment as well with regards to merchandise. So I know that some nations have done merchandise in the past, but it hasn't been something that's been UK wide. So we're hoping, we're in the early stages of just developing that, so that we've got a few giveaways as well that you can give out in your events during that week.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, everybody loves a bit of merch. I'm looking forward to
Exactly.
seeing looking forward to
And
seeing what that looks like.
we can't have a birthday celebration or an anniversary celebration with a few extra freebies or presents, can we? So,
fantastic. So check out the website for details. Perhaps check out the UK nations websites as well, which I'm sure are all linked to through the Volunteers Week website too.
Yeah, so on the homepage of the website, there is now what's happening in each of the nations, so you can easily see what's happening in your local nation.
Amazing, amazing. And yeah, you described it really beautifully, Nicola. Thank you. You know, we can link recognition and celebration for existing volunteers with our recruitment objectives by building a bit of a call to action into our Volunteers Week activity. So if you're having an event to celebrate your volunteers, or even if you're just putting out a bit of comms, if you've also got something on the Big Help Out digital platform, then you've got a really clear call to action that you can reference in that event or in those comms. And that way, any members of the public that are inspired by the stories of your volunteers that you're telling will have something they can sign up to really clearly and easily there and then. What a brilliant way to link these two things together. Let's hope it works.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Nicola, thanks ever so much for joining us. You've been doing so much work getting Volunteers Week to a brilliant place this year. Thank you for that. And we look forward to the celebrations. Please check out the website there and download the pack and start thinking about Volunteers Week activity now.
Thank you. Can I just quickly add as well, we've relaunched the Facebook and Instagram pages this year, which haven't been active for sort of 3 or 4 years. So if you are on Facebook or Instagram, can you follow our Volunteers Week and always use hashtag Volunteers Week in your comms so that we can see what you're up to, and then we can reshare all of the celebrations and things that your organisations and charities are doing.
Brilliant. There you go. Check out the social media feeds too. That sounds like a great place to get inspiration on what might be happening around the country too. Thanks, Nicola. That's a brilliant update.
Cheers, Catherine. Bye.
Okay, let's have a look at the next part of this section. I know this is a part that many of you have been looking forward to. How do we use this digital platform that we've got? The digital platform, as you probably know, is provided by doit.life. There's an email address there for technical support if you're already deep into your account and need a little bit of help to tweak a few things. That's where you can go for kind of technical help. If you haven't got your account yet, or if you had an account last year and you need to reactivate it, the URL that you can see here on the screen is definitely the place to go. You go to the main Big Help Out website, thebighelpout.org.uk. And at the top of that, you'll see an option for organize an event. I will show you what the homepage looks like. Here it is. So as we see here in the top blue banner, you've got that navigating the home menu. Right in the middle there, you can see organize an event. You click on organize an event. And this is, remember, this is whether you've got an account already or whether you need to create a new one. It's the same route and journey regardless. But if you click on organize an event, you'll see this page here. And it has 2 options in boxes in the middle there. You've got the Big Help Out platform and you've got the partner pack. The partner pack is what helps with doing your comms around Big Help Out. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Pete from Together will tell us a little bit about that. But what you want to click on is Big Help Out platform. And then that will take you through to a series of registration or reactivation pages, which will either help you create a new account or reactivate your one from last year. You do need to go through this route to do it. Some of the URLs from last year won't quite work in the same way anymore, but it is fairly straightforward. Once you get there, this is what your dashboard looks like, essentially. You can see you've got kind of two main tabs in the middle here. You've got applications and activities, and this is the place to manage anything that you're uploading or anything that you are seeing from the public in terms of signups. It's your basic one-stop shop for that sort of thing. Hopefully this will be fairly familiar to you. What we're going to do today is talk through a few of the ways that you can use it, and then there are some resources, some video resources that are coming that can explain this probably in a clearer and simpler and quicker way than we kind of have time to today. But if you're wondering, how do I upload opportunities? How do I do this in the most efficient way for me? How do I do this in bulk? Then the next slide is for you. Here are all of the many ways in which you can put things onto the Big Help Out platform this year. The first one to address is probably the simplest one, and it's the manual process. If we go back to our homepage here, our dashboard, if you like, in the top right-hand corner, you can see the green button marked New Activity. This is where we go to add a new event, an action, or an ongoing role. If you want to know a bit about what events, actions, and ongoing roles are, we do have a video that we're going to share with you, and I'll signpost you to that in the links that come out after today's webinar. But essentially, even if you're not sure at this point about an event or an action, we are still a couple of months away from Big Help Out Weekend itself, you can at least add your existing volunteering roles, and there are lots of ways to do that. Manual is the first one, and that gives you an opportunity to do things step by step and control the process from start to finish. It's pretty straightforward once you go. And again, there's a video that will talk you through all of that is coming. However, we know that many of you want to upload lots of opportunities. How do we do that in a way that I don't have to do each one individually? Can I do them in bulk? Well, yes, you can. There are a couple of different ways in which you can do a bulk upload, but they're based via Excel spreadsheets that, again, you access through the platform itself, through that dashboard that we just saw. And there are different versions of bulk upload that work for organizations simply with a lot of opportunities that might repeat. So the same opportunity in different places or at different times. Or if you're an infrastructure organization or you are part of a wider network where you might be managing lots of opportunities on behalf of other organizations, perhaps your local branches or members, or perhaps other volunteer involved organizations in your area, then there is an option called a scripted bulk upload, which can help you specifically with that. That's designed for organizations that have a relationship with others and want to co-manage those opportunities and might have different levels of permissions within that. So bulk upload or scripted bulk upload, we'll talk you through these. But there are some perhaps slightly easier ways of doing some of this stuff that you can access by trying to integrate your own site with the Big Help Out platform itself. And these are all enabled through the Do It API. The API stands for Advanced Programming Interface. And essentially, it's a little bit of code that Do It makes available to anybody that wants it that will help you link your site with theirs. And that provides a variety of options in terms of functionality that includes things like signposting audiences through to your own site if they find you through the Do It Help Out platform itself. So this doesn't negate the need to use the Do It platform. You still need to have your offer in a basic way there. That's the shop window. But once the audience finds it there are lots of different ways in which you can pull it through to your own platform. And the API is probably the best way to do that. And this relates to the integration option in yellow as well. So the good news is that there are two brand new videos being uploaded as we speak that will help you around all of these options. They're going to be on the NCVO YouTube account. They weren't there first thing this morning, but they're being uploaded today. So keep an eye on it and bookmark that page. And we will put links to them into the follow-up email that comes out from today. And these are the two videos, as you can see. The first on the left-hand side talks you through what events, actions, and ongoing opportunities means. These are the three types of activity that we can load. These are the three types of activity that we can advertise on the Big Help Out site. We'll talk you through what each of them are and the various questions and options that you have for listing them, what you're likely to be asked, what you might need to prepare in advance to make that listing really work. Ongoing opportunities, existing volunteer roles is really simple. And if you've got your opportunities ready now, you could upload those, I'm sure, without much fuss. But that video will talk you through those options. It's about 6 or 7 minutes long, so it's not a big commitment. The video on the right-hand side explains some of the options that I've just been through on the last slide. What is manual upload? What is bulk upload and scripted bulk upload? How does integration work? And how can I use the API myself or through my own software provider? There are lots of really great opportunities to do that there. And you should also be aware that Do It are working on a number of integrations automatically. So some platforms will be automatically connected to the Big Help Out. We know that they're working at the moment on Assemble, on Team Kinetic, on Simply Connect, and some of the other major platforms that are getting used as well. So you may not have to go to the trouble of accessing the API yourself. It might be happening automatically. Watch this video for more information, and you can find out more again by emailing Do It directly, hello@doit.life.org, to find out if your platform is one of those that might be integrated automatically. But as we said, even if there isn't, there are lots of ways to get involved. So we heard a lot last year about how organizations use the platform, and we've put quite a lot in place to try and help improve things from last year's experience. These videos are your way to find out what some of those options are and consider the routes that are best for you, and we hope you find them useful. Okay, in this last part of the session, we're going to be joined by my colleague Pete from the Together Coalition, who is the campaigns manager, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about how the media campaign is shaping up this year. This is the exciting public-facing stuff. Can't wait to hear more about it. Pete, you're on mute currently, but when you're ready, feel free to introduce yourself and say hello to the webinar.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me once again, Gethin. My name is Pete Gaffney. I am campaigns manager at the Together Initiative / Together Coalition, which is the organisation that delivers the campaign for the Big Help Out. I have actually joined this call, literally having spoken to the BBC seconds before, and shall be speaking to the BBC seconds after, to give you an idea of the stage we are at. But thank you for having me.
There you go. We've got a short window. We've got a short Pete-shaped BBC-themed window in which to engage you. That's brilliant. So let's crack on. And very much like we did with Nicola, let's just talk through some of these key elements to help us all kind of get our head around them. Pete, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. Apologies, I must be getting boring for you by now. But
never, Gethin, never.
In the first, thank you. You're very kind. In the first part, I talked about how the media campaign's job was really to create the audience, but how that's complemented by the digital platform, which is about convenience and a really good user journey. And then we have this role in the voluntary sector as well in providing a great choice of activities. But tell us about how you see the media campaign and what the media campaign's job is in building this audience.
So, as you'll be sick of hearing me say, we use a very dramatic term in the comms and campaigns world for these things, where we describe the national campaign as the air war that encompasses the campaign. So we at Together, and people like me, my job is not to make amazing volunteering stories happen. That is the role of VCSEs, voluntary organizations, charities, businesses, etc. That's the role of everyone who's getting involved and taking part in the campaign. We need a nice variety of things happening in different places across the country that tell different stories about the impact of volunteering, why people should volunteer, etc., etc. Our job is to elevate those stories into regional media, national media, social media, etc. And we do that through the national campaign. So we need a lot of good and interesting things happening across the country so that we can tell a really compelling story nationally. And by telling that compelling story nationally and regionally and locally through the press, through social media, etc., that in turn generates the mass interest in the campaign, which translates into many new people coming to volunteer for the first time. And we build the campaign so that all of those wonderful volunteering opportunities are being directed to those people who've never volunteered before in an accessible way. And that's how we got 7.2 million people to help out last year.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Yes, and like you said, that worked really well last year. We did cut through to the public and inspired a lot of people to come out and look for something and to try something. And you've touched on the fourth bullet point here, the one in blue, getting involved. Tell us about your events. There's a form that people can fill in to tell the media campaign what they're doing in their areas, isn't there? If we haven't posted that link in the chat already, we will, and we'll include it in the follow-up email. But there's an opportunity. Let's do this bit now. Why don't we? There's an
Yeah.
opportunity to try and get our own local stories, events,
Yes.
initiatives in front of the media. Your job is to try and pitch that into the media, the BBC, and other people nationally and locally as well.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're really open to hearing a good variety of those.
Absolutely. So performing the partner pack, it's very simple. You can give us as much or as little detail as you like. The reason why it's really useful to fill in is if you are open, or if any organizations you work with are open to the idea of, say, the Guardian or the Telegraph coming to interview someone, or the BBC or ITV coming down to film something for a show, for the news, it's a ready to go bank of opportunities I can go to. So what sometimes happens, as indeed is happening today with one particular BBC show, is we will get a call at very short notice from a media partner interested in Big Help Out saying, I have a need for an opportunity that is X, Y, and Z. And we have to then go and find those opportunities. So that resource bank that comes from that form of people saying, yay, we'd be up for being filmed. That is the first place I go to see if we have something that works, because I don't need to worry about calling a complete stranger and being like, so this is what the Big Help Out is, etc., etc. So if you would be open in principle, it's not a firm commitment. You don't have to promise to do anything. It's just saying we'd be open to it. And you have the option when you fill in that form to say, yes, you can tell a BBC or ITV producer that I'm good to go and happy to be interviewed and filmed. Or you can say, I'm up for it, but you need to have a conversation with me first. Either is fine.
Okay.
You can specify that in the form. It's just so that we have a good bank of local opportunities. And I think about 3 or 4 of them now we have actually placed in some way, shape, or form out of the sort of 20, 25 organizations that have said, yeah, we're really game to do something like that. So it is working. I have a conversation later today with a different BBC team about putting one of those opportunities on a big national broadcast. So if you would be interested in that kind of coverage, please do fill it in, because it will be the easiest way for us to put you forward for things.
I mean, that sounds like a great response already, and we're only in April, so you can imagine that media interest is going to be,
Yes.
accumulating exponentially as we get up to June. So you can, Pete, you mentioned it there, but people can find that link within the partner pack. If I just go back a few slides, you may remember that when we looked at this one, which is on the Big Help Out website, get through to the platform on the left-hand side, but you can download the partner pack on the right-hand side here, and that's the place to find that form. If you want to go and have a look for it now or before we send it out to you, as well as pick up on the media assets that you can use to help you get involved in the campaign this year. Okay, amazing. So probably the thing that lots of people on the call are really interested in is about what's happening around this public launch in mid-April. I'm sure it's all embargoed to a huge degree, but what can you tell us at this point about when the public will first get the message, Big Help Out is happening, this is where you go?
So the gist is, we say mid-April. We do now have a 99.99% confirmed date, but it's probably April 16th. So literally mid-April.
Okay,
and
April
we'll be
16th.
launching the platform to the public nationally on broadcast and hopefully in print press as well, and directing the public to go and download the app for the first time. So right now, obviously, organizations are getting there. Members of the public can't create an account right now. From that date, they will be able to do so. They'll be able to download it, and they'll be able to start seeing what's in there. So the main ask for partners and organizations right now, if you're looking at this for the third time on April 3rd, would be even if you aren't in a position to get everything you want in there, or even if you aren't necessarily planning to use the platform as your main recruitment tool, if you are, say, a brokerage who thinks, we don't want to do the integration or we don't want to do that for whatever reason, then get something into the app so that when people go looking in their local area for what's available, your organization is appearing in that list of opportunities.
Yeah.
Even if you're linking out to your own website, not a problem. You're welcome to use it as an advertising platform. You're welcome to use it as an advertising platform now, get something up this week and then in 2-3 weeks' time, put some specific opportunities up. However works for you. But the best way to take advantage would be to put yourself in that app in some way, shape, or form now, so so that when we get that initial public rush of downloads, you are seen by people in the areas you work in as a way they can volunteer, either in general or specifically for Big Help Out this June.
Lovely. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, absolutely. It's a shop window, and if we're not there, we can't get seen. And we know that there will be a good wave of public interest when it launches in April. It will build up to June, but this is a great opportunity to, I guess, pick up that first wave of the public and perhaps sort of steal a march. For those people that are really up for the idea of getting involved in something this year, even if you've just got your ongoing volunteer roles to advertise at this point, even if you're not quite ready to think about events or actions, do get your profile sorted out and make sure you're there for that first wave of public attention. That's wonderful. Pete, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you particularly want to highlight before we let you go back to the BBC?
I just wanted to say someone has just flagged a question very quickly in the chat about national charities being seen locally. The platform is designed to accommodate national organisations and push those opportunities across the country. So you can set them up as a national opportunity. That's not a problem. Don't worry. You'll still benefit from all of this good stuff by putting yourself in the platform. The other thing I would just flag is we also do a series of thematic launches, as we touch on there. So we just did one with faith. We just did one with education. We're in the process of doing one with sport. They will be sector-specific moments to highlight the Big Help Out in certain sectors. For faith, we have the Archbishop of Canterbury and the co-CEO of Progressive Judaism go to an interfaith iftar, do some volunteering, meet some volunteers there, etc. That's been in places like Church Times. The education, we did some with Times Education Supplement and one of the prominent trade union leaders and so on. So there'll also be things like that happening over the next few months for specific areas of volunteering aligned to the causes in the app, more or less.
Lovely. So if people on the call are from organisations that represent a particular cause or a type of campaign, do check out Together's and then the Big Help Out social media feeds, which you can find on the website. That's probably the best place to keep an eye on what's happening in those thematic launches. There may well be elements of those campaigns that you can piggyback on or use to sort of reference your own activities. As soon as you've got things on the Big Help Out platform, you'll be able to share those a lot easier in your own social feeds. There are URLs that you can export quite easily for that kind of thing. So as soon as your opportunity is there, you can start shouting about it and you can amplify it by using the main Big Help Out campaign. Otherwise, Pete, thank you ever so much for joining us this morning. We'll let you get back to BBC Towers. Good luck. I'm not going to try and guess what show it is. I'm hoping it's Gardener's World, but that's a bit of a personal preference.
Thanks,
maybe Kevin. It might not be. Okay, right. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, Pete. Okay, thank you, everyone. We're reaching the end of the webinar now. I've just got time to launch a quick poll, if you don't mind. This will help us understand how useful today has been for you in helping you to engage with the Big Help Out and kind of how we can improve. Really grateful if you can just give us a couple of minutes of your time to have a look at that. It'll definitely help us improve as we go. And while you're having a quick think about that question, I'll just put the final slide up there for you, which if you're working on a laptop or a desktop and you've got your phone with you, you might be able to use your camera to access the QR codes here that can take you through to NCVO's volunteering resources. When we publish the VCSE resource pack, it'll definitely be linked to from that page. So that's the place to find it. And Do It also have a series of support pages for the platform, which will also contain things like those video links that I referenced earlier. They're going to be in multiple places, not just on the YouTube channel for NCVO, but they've also got a number of their own self-serve, self-help guides to different elements of the platform, which includes manual upload, bulk upload, and some of those sorts of things as well. So do check them out. Otherwise, we're coming just about up to the end of the session. I've actually got a couple of minutes early, so we're going to give you a couple of minutes back in your day. We hope today has been really useful for you. If you do have particular kind of questions about the Big Help Out campaign, do let us know. My email address is available there, and you'll be getting a follow-up email from us with the slides from today and links to everything that is available right now and more information about what is coming. So do keep an eye on your inbox for that. Otherwise, thank you ever so much for joining us. We hope today was useful and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.